hopefully folks can hear me. I think sound should be good. Let me know if something's come up and you can't hear me because I had all those all those issues yesterday. Like to avoid it. Now let me know if the levels, if I need to do anything with the levels. Levels are good, bad, ugly. Let me know. I'm thinking they're okay, but never can tell. We are so OSR June Jam is wrapping up, and some folks are kind enough to send me their submissions. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. I'm try to get through them probably this week and then into next week. Daniel Lambert says sounds pretty good. Awesome. Always like to hear that. Maybe I'll just bump it up a slight bit. This was one that I'd gone back and forth with the author a couple times, and they had sent me. I think originally when they sent it to me, or they asked me, "Hey, can I cover it?" They didn't have the full thing; wasn't up on Itch. It is now up, so I thought this is a good time, and I also like it because it's longer. And one of the things that happens with videos, I'm trying to see what I can do in an hour, and so some things are great, but they might be okay. This is going to be 15 minutes, so I'm trying to get can I get 3 or 4 of them to cover. This one, I think we should be able to do. It should be. It's not too little or too much. It's just from an organizational standpoint to try to get things around an hour. This should be good. It's called Aleph, the Strange and Monstrous. There's a link to the Itch page that's in the show description. I think it's $5. I'm not sure if it's a pay what you want or it's just straight up $5. I believe the story is, if I've got this correct, is that there is this is a bestiary that goes along with an RPG called Aleph. I think you can use them separately. They're made in such a way, or the bestiary anyway, that we'll see momentarily, that you can use it outside of that. But this belongs with that world, which I think is kind of I get the sense it's a dark fantasy kind of world. Anyway, we'll get a look at the monsters and we'll see. There's plenty of them. So you can see from the index, we've got 70, we'll see, not including the appendices, 67 pages of monsters, more or less, and then a few pages of appendix material. I'm sure I will not go through all of these, but we can see what they have to say. The first one's called an Aluka. Let's see. Here's that we get looks like some italicized text. That's a description. It isn't immediately apparent, but this human has taken on some subtly aquatic features. Nothing truly monstrous, perhaps, but uncanny. Glassy eyes, clammy skin. Despite their strangeness, part of you can't help but see them as beautiful. It kind of seems like a merfolk stand-in, but they're called Aluka. Their frequency is rare, in parenthetically the sisters, and they are semi-unique. They've got armor class is -3. Hit dice. Looks like you can add class levels to this. That's class plus 3 dice. Hit points class plus 18. They've got a walking speed, a climbing speed, and a swim speed. They've got pretty high morale, and they're between 5 and 6.5 feet tall. Let's see. So their abilities are: they have a drain blood ability. They can command leeches, but they are truth bound. They're bound by a curse of truthfulness as part of their rebirthing ritual, and Aluka cannot lie, but is not required to be forthcoming with information. All right, that's pretty interesting. And they have a curse sensitivity. They're attuned to curses. They can detect, and with enough time, discern the nature of magical curses upon people, places, and objects. I wonder if curses are a big part of the Aleph universe, so to speak. Humans who have been taught the secrets of the deep leeches, which we will see later, and changed into a new form. As they owe their lineage to the leech, they can only eat blood. Ooh, creepy. Frighteningly strong compared to a normal human, the average Aluka is much quicker and tougher than a human and will not age so long as they regularly feed on human blood, at least once a month. Long-lived Aluka, particularly those who drink of humans regularly, can be even stronger. Most of the Aluka around today are of the old noble house Solomon, the historic rulers of the Sister Islands, or just the Sisters. While Solomon himself, and in truth most of his line, is dead, one of his daughters, Layla, lives still as an Aluka and is the head of their house. Due to their longevity, many Aluka will eventually take up the lifetime pursuit of magic, for they have many lifetimes to spare. While not every Aluka is a full wizard per se, it can be assumed that most ooh, is that a typo? Yep, I think there is. Most Aluka 200 or have some spellcasting ability. All right, so they don't list that in their text description, or in the stat block. But we would note that if we were building an Aluka, they might get some spellcasting. I kind of wonder what something like this, as I often will wonder these things aloud from an organizational standpoint, is put this stuff to the left that I'll read first, and then put the stat block to the right, because the stat block ends up giving me things that I would understand more if I read the other stuff first. Not so much the drain bound stuff, but the starting with the bolded humans. I think the big thing is it says frequency rare, and then in parentheses the sisters, and I read that and I go, what the heck is the sisters? Now that I read through the rest of the text, I go, oh, okay, the sister islands, aka or just the sisters. Okay, got it. If I read that first and then saw the frequency afterwards, I would know when they meant rare, parenthetically the sisters, that they mean it's rare. I'm guessing they mean it's rare if you are in the vicinity of the sister islands, which makes sense to me. It's like, okay, that's cool. And then also, we still don't really understand what they mean by class, but I'm guessing maybe that since these are humans that have been transformed, you could take a human, give them whatever class you want, fighter, wizard, thief, whatever, and then say they're a level 4 fighter, and then they get transformed into Luca, and then they get those level 4, whatever those HD and hit points are for that class. They would take that class stuff and then add on top of it. I'm guessing probably be nice to have a note about that also, because we don't just have numbers. So if I just random encounter, okay, Aluka, I'm going to get there and I'm going to say, oh, what does that mean? And I think actually the AC adds armor -3, or is that +3? I think it's -3. I think just means it's not they have a -3 armor. So whatever their armor class is, you then take away 3 more. Presuming I'm guessing they're using a descending armor class. So if you were starting off a plate mail at 2, if you were a plate mail wearing Aluka, your armor class would be at -3 or -1, something like that. But kind of a cool class, so I thought it was merfolk, but it seems to be that is merfolk, though they don't actually talk about whether they can. I guess leech folk is better. We don't get a sense of too much about what they look like, but they have this aquatic strangeness about them. We don't get the sense that there's nothing right here that they can say breathe underwater or truly live aquatically. But they're certainly long lived. But it's also, I kind of like that there's a vampiric blend in there. It's kind of vampire plus leech based mer person, which is a really interesting mix. And maybe if in the setting book or the other books that accompany the Aleph RPG, there'll be more about them, because it seems really kind of a cool race. And this is, at this point, lukewarm coffee for the working man. We have an entry on mundane animals, but I'm actually going to read a little bit of this because it seems like we're getting some world building background on Aleph. Aleph, just as any other place, has a broad range of native wildlife. While it is unique for its monstrous and supernatural beasts, it should be remembered that such things are rare today. Most had their numbers purged long ago in the witch hunts, or were driven deep underground. The great majority of Aleph's wildlife today, outside of select places, is mundane animals. Yet still, Aleph is a strange place. Even the so-called quote-unquote normal animals here sometimes take on confounding and unnatural characteristics. Others have specific mythic or cultural connotations. It should be noted that this is only true of animals born in the lands of Aleph. Animals brought from distant lands do not seem to have these odd properties. It should also be kept in mind that not every individual may exhibit these strange traits. In addition to this, the animals from Aleph sometimes grow to titanic size. Giant variants of all animals should be assumed to exist about 0.1% or less of the population. The following is a list of native animals found across the various regions of Aleph. Some of them have folkloric traits which will be noted. If the trait ends with a percentile in a parenthetical, that indicates the approximate percentage of those animals that will exhibit that property. All right, that's pretty cool. So a few things we're learning about. So Aleph exists in some greater planet, world, whatever, but Aleph is special for certain reasons. Animals in other places don't act necessarily the way these do. These are Aleph's animals, and even if you bring an animal over, it doesn't get affected. It's something that is for animals born and bred in Aleph. And I like the fact that they're gonna presumably call out these traits that are rare or mythic, whatever, and give us some kind of percentages that they might show up, which I think is good. My phone's blowing up. What's my phone's? Whoops. Someone asked me if I have time. I do not have time. Got no time for you. All right, so here's the kind of animals we're going to have. I'm guessing a lot of these are going to be your sort of more or less bog earth standard, but I'm curious to see what kind of mythic stuff they're adding. They're adding into it. So we have alligators, ants, bass, I'm guessing the fish, bats, bluegills, domestic cats, are attracted to places of magic and to magicians, killed in great numbers during the witch hunts, and still seen as unholy animals by strict Orthodox members of the church. All right, that's cool. And we get another little bit of world building about the church. The one thing that's always interesting with reviewing reading a book like this is that we're getting some nice world building stuff, but we're not getting all the context because we don't know anything. We have the church in capital C church, but we don't really know what that is. We saw, I think, witch hunts was capitaled in the witch hunt on the other page. Here it's lowercase, presuming that there's more than one. Yeah, okay, well, so that might be more or less a typo. So the witch hunts. So there was maybe a specific period or thing called the witch hunts. Evocative. We don't really know much about that either. I'd love to know, folks in the chat, how for folks who, or when you're using these or looking at these or buying them, using them, would you prefer let's say I was putting out a book, here are the bestiary, my home game, and here are the kind of beasts and things around. I don't even know what I would call my overall location, or our Gygax 75 challenge, the fall of the lizard empire, whatever. Here are the things there. Here are the bestiary for this. Then you could use it elsewhere, like so much OSR stuff, but it's kind of meant, in a sense, it's a companion to stuff that is in another book or maybe isn't even published yet. How much world building do you like in your bestiary? Would it be better that a lot of this was scrubbed out and that I would put that in the setting book, the note about, say, domestic cats? Or would you prefer more world building put into this book where you could hear some things about the world that these belong in? That way you maybe have a better understanding, a better context of it. But it does add to the page count, and it might not be all that useful to you if you want to pull stuff out for use in your own homebrew. So I'm curious what you think. Let me know. This one seems to be doing, sort of the not either extreme, right? They're not purging out all that material that's world building that might not really matter that much for the bestiary as a standalone thing, and they're not giving us a whole bunch of world building. They're doing kind of that middle ground, which I think a lot of things do with, hey, we're just going to put in maybe called passive world building. It's a little bit more than just implicit world building because they are talking about specific events, but not doing it, not going into a lot of detail. There's not, maybe there will be, I don't know, on page 6, but, sidebar on here, what are the witch hunts and here's what they are, that kind of thing. So I'm curious what folks think about that just in general. It's an interesting question. Brian Smith says, drop all kinds of weirdo stuff in there. I think bestiaries are always more likely to get picked up and looked through. I think that's true. And then Terrence says that they like lore and context. Good to know. The only thing with this list, and I'm actually just going to read through the ones that have some kind of thing attached to it. I might say, hey, you could split these up into your birds, beasts, fish. And maybe it's not super important because we're not even getting really stat blocks here, but organizationally, I don't know. We'll see if they start putting out stats. I'd love to have these in some kind of organization where if I'm looking for a fish, I got to go through an alphabetical order, and then even then I kind of got to, some of these, okay, bluegill I know is a fish, bass I know is a fish, other things I might not know just by the name that it's a fish, depending on what kind of, what they're doing. So it might be nice to have. Coyote, mythically beasts who refuse to spread the Barghest beast sickness. Ooh, we're going to read about that a little bit later. The only meat-eating mammal whose bite will never cause beast sickness, favored hunting companions by locals. I hope we get to hear a lot about what beast sickness is, because that sounds really cool. Frogs and toads are holy animals of the Frog Eater Temple. Special frogs are involved in their faith healing practices. And looks like we're going to get more about that later on, which is good. Hawks. Supposedly the highest ranking knights in King Yeshua's army, the fabled paladins rode giant hawks into battle. So it's got some kind of mythic status. Oh, wrong way. Mythic status. Lampreys, said to favor the blood of magicians, used extensively in witch hunts. Mountain lions, males may on rare occasions breed with rucks. I don't know what a ruck is, but that's cool. The resulting offspring is the dreaded and revered Zis, which is, I think, the final beast in the bestiary. Moose, trained and ridden by some locals of the Witchwood, may be willing to sell trained moose for a steep price, valued as riding animals of any sort are desperately rare in Aleph. Owls, divinities from the Holy Mountain, can see through their eyes. I guess divinities from the Holy Mountain are parenthetically referred to as angels. Pigs, frighten and repel undead. Undead with 2 hit dice or fewer cannot stand within 20 feet of a pig. Undead with 3 or more hit dice may save to ignore for 1 round. Undead with 6 or more hit dice reduce the range of this ability to 5 feet. Man, I really like that detail. I really like that detail about pigs. Though, I don't know if they mean it or not to, but if I'm in a world with pigs like this, then I'm basically, if I'm an adventurer, I got 20 silver gold pieces left in my pocket, I'm buying myself a pig. Forget having a dog, a trained dog with you. I'm bringing a pig. Search for truffles and repel undead. 20 feet. So undead with 2 hit dice or fewer, 20 feet. So that takes care of your skeletons for sure, zombies and skeletons, maybe even let's see, what else? What's the next one up from them? There's at least 3, I think 3 undead that will get just frightened away. Ghouls, maybe? Is it ghouls that might have 2 HD? And they can't get within 20 feet? They're melee only monsters. They have to get at you. That's better than a cleric. Wow. I don't need that cleric to turn undead. I'm just bringing me a pig. Hell, I'll bring a couple of pigs. Have a circle of pigs. That should be a spell. The circle of pigs. So, but it's a really cool detail. But I don't know if they mean be as good as I think it is, because you have to get. And the other thing is, undead, if you have 3 or more hit dice, so you're a pretty good, powerful undead at that point, right? Okay, granted, it's not as good, but you get to within 20 feet of a pig, you have to save, and your save lasts for 1 round. So you're in combat, every round you're rolling to save whether you be repelled. Chances are you're going to fail that save within a couple of rounds. If you can just last... at that point, though, if I'm playing the undead and they're 3 or more hit dice, which I think would mean that they have some kind of intelligence, pretty smart intelligence, you got to go after the pig. But of course, you're going after the pig, everything else is wailing on you. So you got a couple of pigs, and then you put some fighters in front of the pigs. It's an unstoppable. What could stop you? Nothing. Raccoons can see invisible things. I like that. 10% of them can. That's awesome. Let's see. Brian Smith says, I think specific named characters is a bit of world building I will never use, though. Just give me Valiant King or something useful. And then Brian Smith also says, pigs are undead kryptonite? I dig that. And then having orcs be piggish could carry on that kind of relationship, too, like they're immune to some undead stuff. Pigs are OP, need nerfing. Circle of Pig hack is too powerful. Daniel Ayers says, what a hilarious thing for players to accidentally discover. That would be the other question, right? How well known is it that pigs frighten and repel undead? Is it a story that's out there? You might have it as a tale of this, because you think, depending on the way your world works, people probably haven't seen a bunch of undead. It's like in a story. So maybe there's a story, a tale that you can have out there, spin out to your players about someone and their pet pig. They had to sleep in a tomb, and the pig kept the skeleton away. And then maybe the players discover it or not. It'd be interesting, because once it gets out, that's a super powerful thing. And then if you have a druid or somebody, if I'm a druid in the game in this universe, and I could create my own spells, that I'm coming up with the spell Summon Pig. And then if we're going into some tombs, I'm just gonna be like, Summon Pig. How many spell slots do I have? 5? All right, 5 summon pigs. People will make some pig harnesses. We'll attach them to everybody's backs like backpacks. And probably, I mean, I don't know what percentage of undead is gonna be below two hit die or below, but it's probably a good amount. I usually stuff my tombs with skeletons and zombies and that stuff, and then just have a few smattering of stronger undead. But that would make this a supremely powerful strategy. Ryan Smith, that's a great rumor to find. The only way to find out if it works is to haul a dang pig around. Yeah, but pigs are pretty smart. I just think maybe in this universe you wouldn't find so much trained dogs. You'd find trained pigs. Certainly near churchyards and whatnot. There you go. Terrence, me finding a spider web in a farm +5 holy pig. Yeah, definitely their version of Charlotte's Web works a little bit differently. All right, let's get through here, boy. Who would have thought that there'd be so much gold in just mundane animals? But this is nice. Snakes, divinities from the underworld, demons can see through their eyes. Constrictor snakes are not natively found in Aleph. Good to know. Snails and slugs. Snails sometimes have shells of iron, silver, or gold. Those are really small percentages, Aleph. I don't know how you expect me to roll for 0.5%. I'm sure there's some way I can find it out, but I would maybe just 1%. 1 in 100, I think is. I don't know. I'll say this just in general. I don't know if it's useful in the gaminess of something to say it to have less than 1%. 1 in 100 is pretty small, and I think that's a good baseline. And I would just say go up from there. So if you have to have iron, then silver and gold being the least, just make gold 1%, make silver 2%, make iron 3%. I don't think we need to get in the 0.5s. It just means as a GM I got to try to figure it out, or I'm just going to shrug and just say 1%, or go to the nearest whole number. Let's see. Giant spiders are much more common underground. All right, that's cool. See, wild turkeys are popular game animals and drinks. Wolves are favored carriers with the dreaded beast sickness, can be cured 5 and 6 by cleaning the wound within 1 hour. The roll should be made by the referee in secret. Wolves carrying the disease have an additional hit die, 5%. Terrence wants a pig familiar. I get it. Brian Smith says they think hauling a pig around is a great story detail. It is. I think I'm thinking though that I don't even think it's meant to be so much hauling. Like I really think. I mean, I have goblins and things in my world that that I've created that use pigs basically the way we use dogs. So I don't even think it's that much like we have to haul them around. I'm pretty sure you could probably train a pig to be mostly. I don't know if they have the biting power, maybe not as combat efficient, but as good in other things as dogs are. So it's not even that much of a. I guess what I'm saying is I don't even know if it's that much of a burden. I mean, depending on your culture or something, it may be quite natural for you to just have your pig hang around. And yeah, if you've got the Charlotte's Web pig, then you're gold. Scratch that. I want a truffle sniffing goblin. There's the rub. Okay, I have to try to be careful here. I thought like, oh man, I'm gonna be blowing through this fast, and then we went into the animals, and now I'm like, man, I'm already a half hour in almost, and I'm still in the A's, so I might need to. I definitely want to get to what was the beast. Got to get to page 10 for the beast sickness. So I think I'm just gonna, even though some of these sound cool. Barefoot Scrivener. An androgynous. This androgynous person appears to be about 40. They're wearing simple, modest clothes, but notably no shoes. In contrast to their otherwise delicate and clear skin, their feet appear bruised and cut and bloodied. And this is a unique creature. They also have a curse. They're a chronicler of history, and I guess they can give out some kind of boons. That's cool. All right, here we go. But this is what I wanted to get to, number 1. And then I know we got to jump to page 30. Hey, Ovaltine Patrol. Glad you made it. So here on page 10, we have the Barghest. This is where we're going to get that sickness, or we're going to read about that sickness. A swollen and titanic wolf. From its chest sprouts a bouquet of necks, at least a dozen, each ending in a bestial head. Each is a distortion of a mundane predator. Disease leaks from its many mouths. All right, and now it's a unique creature. Oh, and they gave the the bracketed. So they have you get both your descending and bracketed your ascending armor class. Their AC is 0 or 19. Hit dice is 12 plus 2. Hit points 98. 60-foot walking speed. No running speed given. I guess if you're a Barghest, you have no need to run. 18 feet long, 25 foot long with the heads, and it attacks with 2 claw attacks, 2d4 plus 2, and a 1d6 plus 1 bite. Is that and or? But how many bites does it get? I think that's the thing. Like maybe let's say here. So it's called a beast, or I guess an ability or characteristic. It's called Beast Hydra. Roll a d20. The first time the Barghest is seen, as the number of heads it has at the moment. The Barghest has 360-degree vision if it has at least 5 heads. The Barghest gains an additional bite attack for every head it has beyond the first. The Barghest's bite attacks have a range of 10 feet, can attack separate targets. Individual heads can be attacked and severed as a separate target. AC is -2 or 21 and has 12 hit points. If all the Barghest's head are chopped off, it will die instantly. Alright, so that's about heads. And then for every 5 heads the Barghest has, 1 head should have a dangerous ability of mutation. If the Barghest is approached with 3 or fewer heads, each head should have such a trait. You may use the table below to decide what traits are possessed. Alright. So it's got a bunch of heads. Each of those heads gets a bite attack. So if you run into a Barghest with a bunch of heads, you're getting a bunch of bite attacks every round. Some heads might be special. Might have a goring tusk. Might be covered in barbed horns. Have an extended neck. Be multi-mouthed. Have a prehensile tongue. Have bacterial spit. Have some kind of bony overgrowth. Have searing blood. Serrated quills. Oversized jaws. A horrific mutation, which is basically rolling twice. And then be nightmarishly twisted, roll 3 times. And then you just if you get one of those last 2, you re-roll so you don't get them, so they don't stack over and over again. Barghest is the king of beasts. Anytime the Barghest eats a predatory mammal, this includes humans, it will grow an additional head in 1d4 rounds. The grown head will resemble a distorted version of the animal it consumed. Super gross, especially if you're in battle with it and it's a drawn out battle, or you roll a 1 or something on the round, so it's not a lot of rounds, and then it grows the head of some adventurer player character or NPC that it just ate. Well, maybe we could argue it can't eat during combat, which I would probably agree with. So maybe it would have to, if you ran away, then you'd come back and see that. Here we go. Beast sickness. The Barghest is the origin of the beast sickness and spreads disease through its bites. Save or become afflicted. Can be cured 2 in 6 if the wound is cleaned within 1 hour. Can be cured 5 in 6 if the area wounded is amputated within an hour. The roll should be made by the referee in secret. Those who contract the disease become afflicted humans, which we'll see a little bit later, and lose control of their character each full moon and permanently once they become a full beast man. Ooh, so we get beast men. Sometimes called the beast, due to old folklore that says... Oh, there's a typo there. Due to old folklore that says the Barghest name is bad luck. There's only one Barghest, and it is the source of the beast sickness, or at least its oldest victim. It lives somewhere deep in the cave ecosystems below Aleph. Once long ago, it prowled the overlands of Aleph, but it grew weary of the judgment of the moon. I like that. And fled to the underworld. It has been gone from the surface so long, many assume it to be only myth. Treating the beast sickness has troubled medicine men for generations, and for centuries the only treatment for outbreak has been a merciful and swift death. There is one account, though unconfirmed, of a long-dead priest of the throne curing a village infected by the beast sickness with sanctified blood from the Barghest. Whether this truly happened, and how a priest would acquire such a thing is unknown. Despite this, blood of the Barghest is a reagent seen as priceless by medicine men and the Church of Throne. Alright, cool. So we don't know what the Church of Throne is. That's a little bit more detail we got before with just the church, uppercase C. I'm guessing those are one in the same. But some really great details. Beastmen, you can catch the sickness. This could be, you could have a campaign centered on, hey, you're the party or the apprentices of some old guy that swears up and down that the Barghest lives, and as they're dying of beast sickness or are going to become a beastmen and they have to be put down, they beg you to swear an oath not to rest until they have killed the Barghest, and then it can all be about figuring out what's real, what's not real, and then down into the depths of the earth eventually to face off against that creature. I would be highly, highly satisfied with that. Fausto Bada. Hey, Fausto says I just saw this on Reddit. Okay, cool. Well, I didn't post it, so maybe the author posted it. And I don't think I mentioned the author, which is silly of me. This is by Zach Rebe, or Rebe. I'm going to say Rebe. And it was dedicated to Kentaro Miura and the OSR community. I probably should have mentioned that before, but I get carried away. So the next thing on our hit list, and there's some really great stuff in here already, whether or not, even if I chose not to use Aleph, the Beastmen, Beast Sickness, that's good stuff. Barghest, somewhere down in the depths of the earth, may or may not exist. Maybe who knows, you could, all kinds of cases, just kill it, get its blood. I like the stuff about pigs that we read earlier, and cats and things. Very cool, very cool. See, I didn't miss. Okay, I'm all up to date on the chat. So Beastmen now. Beastmen are warped humanoids twisted by the beast sickness plaguing the Devil's Tooth Peninsula. Beastmen can best be sorted into 3 categories: lesser beastmen, greater beastmen, and man beasts. Each of the groups, as well as common strains of the sickness, are detailed below. Beastmen, besides man beasts, have intelligence comparable to humans. However, their ferocious hunger makes it extraordinarily difficult for beastmen to take full advantage of the fact. Beastmen rarely use tactics beyond overwhelming with sheer numbers, though ambushes are not unheard of. Beastmen weaponry tends to be crude or otherwise scavenged off the bodies of their victims, as they lack the societal order or temperance needed for forging weapons or armor in meaningful numbers. And that's a great, I have to say, I really appreciate that description, right? The reason why they don't do arms and armor isn't because that they're sort of beastie or that they're they're unintelligent. They just don't have the temperament or social order. You need to have certain cultural things to allow people the time and space and everything to take up these kinds of pursuits. It's your history of, when you're hunting and gathering, you're spending all your time on the road, moving around. You don't really have time to do anything. Once you settle down, then suddenly you can have people. You get surpluses. And you can have people setting aside time to learn how to do things like make arms and armor. Otherwise, you're kind of caught. You just don't have time. Well, you could be a genius, but if you're always on the move, you just don't have time. And I like that's a good reason. It kind of gets around kind of thornier issues, I think, which other creatures that are into, where you're trying to come up with reasons, and you don't want to run into certain tropes, right? Of, hey, well, why don't they do this thing? And this is a great thing. It's not because they're not intelligent. It's not because they lack something. It's their society and their temperament, which again is kind of explained because they have this horrible sickness. It just doesn't give them the latitude and space to do that. They're too busy doing other things that they can't not do. But I don't understand the beastmen besides man beasts have intelligence compared to humans. I guess that means that maybe man beasts have less than human intelligence. I guess we'll see. Here we're getting to the universal beastmen traits. So they have a ceaseless hunger. Regardless of how much a beastman has eaten, they will always be ravenously hungry. Beastmen can often be distracted or bribed with food, though such terms will only last until they have finished eating. So that's good to know, and it also explains why they can't sit around carving, doing sort of craft pursuits, as they're always ravenously hungry. And they also suffer from a lunar frenzy. The full moon drives beastmen to become a feral tide of violence. During a full moon, beastmen gain a number of properties. They will never fail morale rolls. They deal +1 damage on every attack. They smell blood up to 900 feet. They will prey upon and eat bleeding beastmen if other bleeding or otherwise obvious targets are not available. They will always attack humans on sight. Intelligent beastmen lose the ability to communicate, and they become immune to mind-altering effects. So something else I like. They mentioned before the sort of the disagreements or whatever. I forget what they called it. That with the moon, which is why the Barghest went underground, and now we've continuing this theme of this kind of lunar effect. It explains why in this universe, maybe like our own, people look at the full moon as kind of a weird things happen. Well, yeah, if you're outside in beastman territory, or there is a beastman on a full moon, It's nasty, and it also feeds a little bit. You get a little bit of that werewolf effect, which is cool, but a little bit different. All right, so now we get into particular. We get lesser beastmen. Lesser beastmen encompass the most common forms of beastmen. About 65% of beastmen are lesser beastmen. All right, that's good. So afflicted humans, an otherwise normal human with some of the early signs of beast sickness may have abnormally long or thick hair, oversized canine teeth, budding horns, etc. And their frequency is common in the Devil's Tooth region, but rare elsewhere. I'm just going to go down to the special stuff. I don't need to get into all the details. Miserable sap who had the misfortune of falling ill. Not yet a full beastman, but well on the way. Early infected are generally lucid. Late infected tend toward delirium. Sickness visibly progresses with each full moon. Will become a full beastman after 1d4 full moons. You may roll on the table below to determine what kind of beastman the affected becomes. Add +1 of the roll result for every 2 humans killed by the afflicted. Ooh, I like that. And then on this d6 table, it's 1 to 4, it's common beastman. On a 5, it's a greater beastman. On a 6+, it's a man beast. So I'm not sure whether it's so interesting. So man beasts are the rarest. I'm still curious if they're smarter or less smart than your average bear or human, as the case may be. Common beastmen, menagerie men of variable form, a tide of horns and antlers, claws and hooves, teeth. Not one is quite the same in its malformities. I don't know why I thought malformation there. All right, so the frequency again, common in Devil's Tooth, rare elsewhere. As their name implies, the most common form of beastmen, resembling another typo there, a large human with mismatched bestial features. The above stat block represents a generic example, but there are dozens of minor variations that may exist among them. To better represent the eclectic nature of common beastmen, you may wish to roll on the features table below 1 to 2 times when generating common beastmen. And the features we get are, antlers, horns, curved horns, prehensile tail, quills, rodent teeth, huge eyes, overdeveloped forelimbs, plated dermis, shaggy hide, pig snout, diseased bite, so on and so forth. Oh, so if it's a diseased bite, is that separate than the beast sickness? Or is that the beast sickness? And there's a few more: burrowing claws, musk, blubber. Now onto the rarer, greater beastmen. Greater beastman, bring me He-Man. Greater beastmen are rarer, stronger beastmen. They tend to bully weaker beastmen into serving their whims. About 5% of beastmen are greater beastmen. Man, look at that. Picking on their own. Blind beast. Okay, I guess this is a type of greater beastmen. Blind beast, they resemble a monstrous combination of man, mole rat, and bat. They have grotesquely oversized mouth that extends to their torso and seems to fuse into their ribs. Oh, goodness. It leaks viscous drool constantly. Yuck. And then the blind beasts are blind. They snatch, they'll grapple anything human size or smaller that it hits with both claws, and then it will devour a grappled character. Revolting, cowardly beastmen. Despite their size and strength, blind beasts will never willingly enter a fight in which they are outnumbered. Their preferred tactic is to quickly grab, kill, or devour stragglers in a group, then drag the body back to the inky darkness of their lairs. Due to their lack of sight, blind beasts tend to make their lairs in cave systems. To utilize their echolocation, they emulate the noises of their environment. They pick at the walls to simulate the shifting of pebbles and drool to mimic dripping water. That's pretty gross. They are relatively solitary, but particularly bold blind beasts may form packs with other beastmen acclimated to the darkness. Darren says, no Fluffy Wuffy? No, Fluffy Wuffy is dead. Next up in the greater beastmen character are the Goliath Man. Enormous, carnivorous ape men with inch-thick skin. Scarcely bipedal, their forelimbs have degenerated into elephantine hooves. Their dim, slack faces are perpetually twisted into a toothy, tusked grimace. Their degenerated pseudo-hooves, or they have degenerated pseudo-hooves, they cannot hold weapons. Goliath men, that is. They are simple-minded. They have a +2 to save against mind-altering effects because it's just too complicated for them. They are cannibals. While all beastmen occasionally consume their kin, Goliath men particularly enjoy doing so. A Goliath man may devour other beastmen with 3 or fewer hit dice. They restore 1 hit point when they do so. Oh, that's pretty cool. They have thick skin. They can ignore the first 5 damage dealt by any non-magical attack. Oof, that's rough. And they have a trampling charge. If a Goliath man moves at least 20 feet in a straight line, it can move through creatures half its size or smaller as though they were not there. Creatures that the Goliath man moves through must save or take 2d6 damage from being trampled upon. And then finally, they are dim-witted brutes often coerced into the service of more intelligent beastmen. Their massively oversized frame leaves precious little blood for their brain. Wah, wah, wah. Goliath men are occasionally worshipped by roving hordes of lesser beastmen. They do not seem to understand being worshipped as a divinity, and as such do not attempt to leverage this position for greater power. Goliath men are content to have their followers be an endless source of free meals. All right, that makes sense. Now we have the Hound King. Man, I'm already on 40 minutes. I guess you look, just as a testimony to how, what a wonderful book this is shaping up to be, I'm on B. I'm on B. I'm on the letter B still. But we do need to jump to 30, because I think there was something else there that seemed to be of note that was referenced earlier that I want to read. Next up, we have the Hound King, a freakish amalgam of an oversized human and a pack of wild canine. Resembles a furred, muscular man with gangly, clawed arms from the shoulders down. Above, a teeming mass of dog, wolf, and jackal heads, each barking and growling discordantly. When they speak, the heads speak in unison. Oh my gosh, that's also super creepy. They're many-headed, so they get 360-degree vision. They rend. Creatures immediately take an additional d10 damage if hit by both claw attacks. That's nasty. They howl. The howling of a Hound King can summon other beastmen and animals to its location. There's a 50% chance 1d6 common beastmen and a 70% chance 2d6 wolves, wild dogs, and jackals in any combination will arrive d8 rounds after howling. I think this is kind of gets... I want to feel like there's a thing called a Rat King, which I guess exists. It's not something man-made, but I guess can happen in certain situations where a bunch of rats' tails will get tangled together, so they end up moving as this one kind of just mass of rats, one thing, and they were called Rat Kings. I'm guessing when it was much more prevalent to see such things, you could potentially see one, and I wonder if having the many heads is kind of a... and it called the King, Hound King kind of has that thing, but the Rat King I always thought was super creepy, and this definitely carries that forward. Apex predators of the peninsula, while not physically the strongest form of beastmen, they are decidedly the most cunning and cruel. Hound Kings may ignore their ceaseless hunger for up to 24 hours at a time, allowing them far more advanced tactics than other beastmen. Hound Kings often act as the de facto leaders of beastmen packs and may compete with one another for perceived leadership. Particularly powerful Hound Kings may have up to 2 additional hit dice, as well as an additional bite attack. While Hound Kings do lose higher brain function during a lunar frenzy as all beastmen, they maintain a bestial dominance over their kind and allow frenzied beastmen to fight as a pack of canine would. Very cool stuff. Did they say how many heads they have? They don't. How many bites? 1 bite and claw attack, or 2, or 1d6 bites, or 3 bites. Okay, so I guess maybe they have 3. They just say a mass, but it's not like the Barghest where they get a bite per head. It seems like they get a fixed number of bites. Now we're on to man beasts. Those most twisted and changed by the beast sickness. Whether that makes them the greatest or the least of the beastmen is a matter of perspective. Man beasts are of animal intelligence, and it is said wicked souls are especially likely to become them. About 30% of beastmen are man beasts. All right, so finally, the question that I'd been asking for so long. We knew they didn't have human intelligence, but then I wasn't sure if it was that they were more or lesser. The answer is less. Now we get bugbears as a type of man beast. The shape of the beast is roughly that of a grizzly bear, save for the additional row of limbs. Rather than paws, each of its 6 arms end in a clawed man's hand. 2 perfect brown eyes peer out of the bony plate covering the top of its short snout. When it roars, it reveals 3 rows of uneven teeth. It's a thrashing beast. If it attacks with 4 of its claws, it can attack up to 4 targets. It's got rows and rows of puncturing teeth. Creatures bitten by a bugbear are trapped and cannot move away from the bugbear without freeing their limb. Ooh, creepy. If the bugbear moves, save. Hold on. If the bugbear moves, save or be dragged wherever the bugbear goes and take an additional 1d4 damage. If the roll is a 1, the bit limb is torn off. Ooh, nasty. Large, brutal man beasts, slightly more intelligent than wargs and pale horses, and slightly more able to be tamed. Large bands of beastmen may include a small number of semi-trained bugbears, typically 1d4 per 100 beastmen, among their numbers. Typically, at least 5 common beastmen are required at any given time to keep these bugbears under control. Powerful hound kings may occasionally ride bugbears as mounts. Now that's an interesting idea. All right, we have next up, pale horse. Sickly pale, hoofed quadrupeds. At a distance, it nearly resembles an ordinary ungulate, but its head twists into a clamshell made of antlers. The shell blooms open like a flower, revealing pseudopods ending in barbed teeth. They lash and writhe. Its torso is covered in jaundiced eyes. It moves with an ill-fitting grace and dignity. That's very much has, I don't know, I kind of feel like the Stranger Things sort of flower opening. I know Stranger Things didn't do it first, but I've just been watching some of it recently, so it's what comes to mind, and with tentacles and stuff. Definitely, I like the creepy vibe. Because of its countless eyes, it's got 360 degrees of vision. It's got shelled pseudopods. They've got 4 hidden stingers inside their antler shells. They have 10-foot reach and can attack up to 2 different targets at once. If a pale horse attacked with stingers the previous turn, opponents can attempt to sever them. They have an AC of -1 or 20 and 4 hit points. That's a nice note because it probably would come up if it lashed out with the stingers. Can we try to slice them? And the answer is yes, you can. It's just difficult. We've got a neurovenom in the stingers. Perhaps the most feared of the beastmen, maybe most of all by their own kind. Other beastmen will avoid pale horses whenever possible. They are seen as more trouble than they are worth. In contrast to other beastmen, pale horses are completely silent. And then finally, the warg. An awkward, shaggy quadruped. Its body looks like a diseased dog, or maybe a malnourished wolf. It has the warped head of a man with jutting, sharpened teeth. It is barking, it is laughing. They're plague carriers. Okay, so I guess the important thing here, I guess, is that this, and I was sort of assuming that just all these beastmen carried the plague, but it seems like wargs maybe are the main carriers. They're the lowliest and most common form of beastman, or man-beast rather, and they laugh and bark to themselves incessantly, kind of hyena-like. Oh my gosh, 50 minutes already. All right, well, I want to go to page 30 because that had something, and then I'm just going to riff through. Oh, it was the Frog Eater Temple is what I was interested in. Let's see. So we have this thing about Empire Ants, which seems really cool, but I'm already so far down the rabbit hole in time. There was a reference earlier on to the Frog Eater Temple, so I want to get that bit in here. The Frog Eater Temple is the largest of the folk religious revivals that have risen in the Sunken Lands since the sealing of the capital city. So these are things we don't know about. We don't know the Sunken Lands, I'm guessing, are sunken. Well, it just means it doesn't mean that they're been like Atlantis sunken in underwater, or just sunken like in some kind of mire or swamp. We don't know. We obviously don't know what the sealing of the capital city is, but it sounds cool. Despite its openly heathen nature, even throned faithful lords of the Sunken Lands often have to accept the presence of the faith. So clearly the Sunken Lands can't be, if they're underwater, people can breathe. Otherwise, maybe it's like the Netherlands of Aleph, and Belgium. Sorry, and what, Liechtenstein is also considered part of the Low Countries. This rare tolerance is owed to its social utility, for the temple is the most reliable source of healing and medicine in the area. The temple is the only organization in the region with the infrastructure to reliably train new physics and medicine men, and tends to only teach these sciences to their priests. As their name implies, the religion focuses on the veneration of frogs and toads. Many of their religious rites involve the ritual consumption of such creatures, though this is done outside the view of non-practicers. They are somewhat animistic, viewing frogs as both ideal creatures to be reborn into in a future life and a source of nourishment and healing in this one. Hey, Rob Brennan. Oh, thanks. Rob Brennan says, love the show. Well done on thoughtful content analysis. Well, I appreciate Rob Brennan. I appreciate you. And hey, thanks. Glad you could hop in and hang out for a spell. The temple freely offers its medical services to the faithful and for a modest fee to others. This includes surgery, diagnosis, and the mundane treatment of injury, illness, and parasites. The temple does have magical healing, but works to obscure this fact from those outside the ranks of their priesthood. Most frog eater temple priests have no spellcasting ability, but are trained doctors. Only 30 priests in the temple are trained in magic. Really, just 30. Only 30 there are. They're like the Sith, but more numerous. 15 are of 3rd level, 10 are of 4th level, 4 are of 5th level, and the high priest of the temple is of 7th level. Maybe there is some reason why they freeze it at 30, and then only when somebody dies do they bring in one more into the fold. The invaluable services of temple ease the common people's concerns about some of the temple's more esoteric or frightful practices, such as members of the clergy being forbidden from associating with former family and forced to take a vow of anonymity. Because of this, the identities of temple priests are completely unknown. All right, cool. And then we get a whole spell casting tradition here, which I'm going to bypass, not because I don't want to read it, but because I'm already at 53 minutes, and I do want to just at least breeze through some of the rest, and I think I wanted to hit that, like, what was it, the Ziz at the back that I'm interested in. But I do like that. But I really appreciate that we've got a spellcasting tradition. It's something that was mentioned about frogs, a reference to frogs in just the animals section. Boom! Here we get a section about the temple itself. Granted, it's small. I'm sure this will get built up upon. I'm guessing in the more settings-driven materials about Aleph, but they give it to us here. They give us a spellcasting tradition. We also get a frog ogre. I'm not sure what that is, but very cool. And a toad mother, also awesome stuff. So I like that, and I've been looking for it. So they delivered. And we get, let's see, I like some of his names: Graven Sentinels, Hangman's Priests, Hide Behinds, House Solomon was noted earlier. I'll just read a little bit about this. The House Solomon is the noble, though now declaring themselves royal, descendants of Solomon, King Yeshua's uncle, a religious philosopher, and eventually one of the king's vassal lords. Solomon, for his years of service to the king, was given lordship of an archipelago discovered off the east coast of the Devil's Tooth. He would eventually name these islands the Sisters. We remember I forget the names of them, but the kind of merfolk / vampires are from these islands. While the practice of ritual imbibing and transcendental surgery were denounced as heretical religious expression, it was a somewhat open secret that Solomon engaged in such reckless prayer. Following the death of his youngest daughter, he buried himself in the study and experience of strange religious rituals, hallucinogenic and transcendental compounds, and heretical magic. Eventually, his research led him to find the deep leeches. Solomon discovered the method by which to change a human into a aluka. There we go. That's what I had forgotten. He himself was among the first, he himself was among the first, though one, he was a trusted friend and advisor of Yeshua himself. Well, I think maybe while he was a trusted friend and advisor of Yeshua himself, the line of Solomon have been enemies of the church for a long, long time. So cool. So we get that bit about House Solomon, which we've seen earlier with the Aluka, another kind of really cool, interesting species, people, things. They also have their own spellcasting tradition, and they also have some monsters to go with them. Giant riding centipede, giant riding mosquito, gross, a pumpling, and I guess it's a characteristic of the pumpling is their blood bags. Parasites and hematophagous creatures that feed on a plumpling restore 1d4 plus 1 hit points. So I guess since the Aluka need to feed on blood, makes sense that these blood bags would help them out. All right, I got a cruise. We can see there's a bunch of good stuff here. Not a ton of art, and I don't mind. To me is not a negative at all. And I think he's leaning on a lot of public domain art, which I totally get because that's where I'm at and where a bunch of people are when you're starting out. Is you lean on the public domain art, which I think he's using very well. This is where I think this is the kind of product that I imagine in probably in short order. Not necessarily this one. I'm not suggesting they're doing this, but with stuff like Midjourney around. And in fact, if you go look at the art I used for my thumbnail, I put in basically the description for Aleph and got some really cool images. Maybe I'll show them at the last second, just because I'm addicted to Midjourney. So you get Seth, Shamir, the Skull Bouquet, Stampede Tide Swinier, Trueborn, Tulpas. Oh, Tulpas, nice. Vagrant Molds, Void Angels, the Abaddon, Welk Monks, Witch Killers, Witchwood Puppets, Witch Queen's Court. Again, another cool thing, but I don't have time, but I appreciated being there. A whole bunch of stuff there. And then finally the Ziz. The Ruck seem to revere this titanic beast. It has the head and wings of a bird of prey, the body of a mountain lion, and the savage nobility of each. Got armored feathers, wields power over storms and lightning. Often considered the most powerful animal to fly Aleph skies, born of the rare union of a female ruck and a male mountain lion. Ziz are sterile, but command the respect and obedience of both their parent species. Because of their phenomenal strength and power, some of the scattered human tribes of the Eyrie worship Ziz as deities. And then, like the Rook, Ziz's feathers can be crafted into armor. Oh, very cool. All right, so I just want to go back because I missed Rook and I just don't know offhand what they are. I'm guessing it's going to be here. It's a colossal raptor that moves with uncanny grace for its size. Its feathers gleam with the color of dull bronze in the sun. Even for its size, its talons are massive. It has blade-length talons, armored feathers, and it's found in the Eyrie Mountains. And Rook eggs are highly valued by poachers. All right, so that is that. Now we get some appendices. Oh, look at that. I kind of wish this was up at the front. I know they put it in the back, which is cool, but A, I'm a sucker for a hex map, and this is a nice-looking, stylistic hex map. I dig it. And B, for me, the way I look at this is the entries are referencing geographic locations, so it would have been nice for me to be able to build that context for reading them. Of course, I suppose if I'd looked at the table of contents in more detail, I could have seen, oh, the atlas is at the back. But I might have put this in the front. But still, it's nice to have it, because I was thinking, like, one of the things that would be cool, but I don't know if it would step on the toes of other products necessarily, would be a map, and here they gave us a map, and it's a nice map. And it's stylistic, but it's also clear to read. We get the Eyrie Mountains in the northwest, down to Yarrick's Run, rather. A desert of ash coiling up the peninsula contains the lair of the dragon Yarek, and grows each time she awakens. That's very cool. Let's see, where are the sunken lands? Because we were just over there. Okay, that's over here. 10. So yeah, maybe is really at or below sea level. 11 is Dragon Slayer Ridge. Let's see, Devil's Tooth is over here. 9. I have some other locations. Very nice. Very nice. And then we get another appendix with adventures in Aleph. Some may want to run adventures of campaigns of their own in the setting of Aleph. For those people, I wanted to include a section at the end here where I offer a bit more explanation of aspects of the setting the rest of the book alludes to, as well as some recommendations of my own on how such a campaign might run. As always, feel free to ignore or change anything here to suit your group's tastes. I mean, this is really cool. I like it. I was thinking that they wouldn't have anything like this at all, but I appreciate that they've got some stuff in here. I almost think this is like, and again, this is just, I don't know if it's Zach's choice because they have too much setting stuff to want to put in one book, and they don't want it to get too munged up or what. But it's a good, I guess, building up on that, right? Well, how much setting material do you want to include in our bestiary? A lot of this stuff has a very strong sense of place, which I like. Hey, these things in this area are this certain way. This is why they're this certain way. Here's some interesting things about it in terms of the place, the history, and whatever. So it all goes together. So I appreciate how, look, you can't separate the Aluka the way they're envisioned with the thing, because okay, the deep leeches and then this king and like these islands, all right, like it all kind of makes, there's a whole story there. So you want to include the story with the creature. So I think for me, it makes the creature a lot cooler knowing all that story, as opposed to them just saying, okay, these are kind of vampiric leech people, now go. Having all that stuff makes sense. It makes it, to me, it adds a lot, but then you need to start filling that in. And how much do you fill that in before you're writing all kinds of books? And I felt that way with other things, where I felt like, man, I really would like more about these details. And because it's a bestiary and they stick closer, they hew closer to just being a bestiary, they don't give you that stuff. And I think he's found a nice thing, but it does make me a nice balance. But I almost wish, like, man, just do more, or hopefully there'll be more Aleph stuff that goes into more depth. Brian Smith says, are we verging on hidden gem territory with this one? Pleasant surprises everywhere we look. It seems like it. I don't know how hidden it is. Hopefully to the extent that folks watch this at all, I can uncover it a bit. But yeah, I think in terms of the wider landscape, I would say definitely a hidden gem, so to speak. I think there's a lot of really great stuff in here. And even if I weren't going to use some of their things, I got some really great ideas, and I appreciate what they're doing. And then we also get some inspirational reading, and then some excerpts from the Song of Aleph, the holy text of the Church of Throne. Maybe the one thing I would have maybe liked to learn more about that we didn't get in here is the Church of Throne. But you know, that could have just been my fault. I might have just breezed past it because I just ran so out of time. Here is the excerpt. And though man was not Throne's own child, they welcomed them to their choir as though humanity were natural born. And greatest amongst the men was Yeshua, inheritor of Yesod, chosen as the divine instrument of the primordial. And so we praise upon the name of our King, Avatar of Throne, Lord of Aleph Eternal. May his name never be sullied. There you have it. And that, folks, is... I'm scrolling. Aleph, the Strange and Monstrous. Just because, I mean, even though I am kind of late, I will demonstrate a little bonus time of some Aleph imagery I came up with. All right, let me share it with you. All right, it's loading. Got on stream. Yeah, so I put in a prompt that was basically the little description, I think, on their itch.io page. Aleph is a place cast in the shadow of oppressive religion, strange tradition, and horrible, vicious, I think, monsters. And I went through a couple of generations here, but man, I think I want to say they're trying to do this like tentacle thing. It's supposed to be kind of like Aleph itself, the Aleph, but super cool. And then let's see, there was one other one I had, and then this other one where I don't know if it was trying to give me the Aleph, but I mean, I just love there's just such a creepy atmospheric. I didn't ask for any of the colors or the crosses or just the weird shapes or this kind of individual here, and then what's happening to this over here, and then I blew two of them up. This is the one I ended up using on the cover art. If you look at the cover art, you'll see that's what I picked. And this is the kind of thing that I think for folks who can't afford any art and have been sitting around scraping and trying to find some useful public domain stuff, I think that Midjourney is going to be a boon. I'm still figuring out, and if people want, let me know if you want more streams of Midjourney, because I'm always creating Midjourney stuff these days. It seems like in my spare time I just sit there and throw prompts in there just to see what happens. A little bonus. I don't know. I've got one in the cover of the video if you go look at the thumbnail, but I just thought it was a really cool image. I wanted to share. Anyhow, if you give the thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. Hope everyone loved it. If you like this, really go to Itch. Check it out. I don't have it here. Let's see if I go to... Here it is. On Itch. I didn't add this to my collection, so I will. 60 monsters, hand-drawn map. We didn't get into it, but there are some spells even. $5. I think $5 is in no way out of line for something like this. Seems like a lot of work went into it. Seems, granted, I ran into some typos, but that's going to happen. I'm sure this is like a one person shop doing all this stuff. Really, really, really cool stuff. So thanks so much to Zach. I was just spacing on his name there because I was seeing edgy Demi Fiend on itch. But thanks to Zach for letting me check this out. Really cool stuff. I'm gonna have more OSR June Jam coverage as folks have sent me stuff probably tomorrow. I might be just at today's already Wednesday, so maybe Thursday. I think I have a 2 or 3, and maybe I can do all those in 1 hour. Do like a medley of OSR June Jam. But this one seemed to have enough oomph to it to do on its own, and yeah, it definitely did. So, all right, folks, I will let you go. I gotta run. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on. I'll talk to you later, everybody. Cheers.